And crew, what's up? What's good? It's your girl Jasmine back with another video on the channel. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Let's go. So, today, we got Curry versus Magic. Who's the GOAT at the PG position? You know? To me, this is a new one because I never seen anybody try to compare these two together. I personally think that their styles are totally different, and that is it's different eras. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this video would try to compare them or try to say who's GOAT. Let's go ahead and get into it. But before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and push that notification bell so you know notification I post. That being said, Curry, Magic, let's get it.
Dominated the 2022 NBA Finals. Andre Iguodala called Curry the greatest point guard of all time. Did Steph really bump Magic Johnson from the throne of the #1 point guard ever? Here's a detailed comparison between Steph and Magic to discover the true point guard GOAT. You can't win NBA championships without great teammates. Magic had Kareem and James Worthy. Jordan never won without Pippen. Kobe played with prime Shaq. And Steph won his titles with Clay, Draymond, and KD. But what differentiates Magic from all the guys we just mentioned was his ability to impact winning from the start. Kareem had been with the Lakers for 4 seasons before Magic arrived. And he won only 2 playoff series in those 4 years, despite winning multiple MVP titles. As soon as Magic was drafted in 1979, the Lakers won 60 games in a season and made it to the NBA Finals. Magic immediately proved that his leadership and winning mentality were at a GOAT level. Without Kareem, Magic started at center in Game 6 of the 1980 Finals, finishing with 42 points and 15 rebounds to lead the Lakers to the NBA championship, winning the Finals MVP trophy as a rookie. Johnson won another Finals MVP in his 3rd year and was an all-star in every season except in 1981 when he was injured. If we account for his NCAA title in 1979, he had the best career start in NBA history. For Curry, it took him a while to transform from a skip.
Hold on, before we even get to Curry, let's not just downplay all that what he just said about Magic. Like let's not downplay that. He flew through that. But Magic, I feel like sometimes he don't get recognized a lot, especially with newer generations. He don't get recognized a lot. Most people know Magic from outside of basketball. You know, businessman, the whole HIV thing, all that, right? But the older generations, they recognize what Magic has done for the game and how he helped change the game. I feel like newer generations, they don't know nothing about that. That list of what he just said, that's very, 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 very hard to do. And if you're a basketball fan, you know that. But let's go.
Skinny tweener to a superstar. He started his career as a second fiddle to Monte Ellis and nearly got traded in his 3rd season because of bad ankles. Curry made the playoffs for the first time in year 4 and became an all-star in his 5th NBA season,
like a baby.
which is a slower pace than any other player on the top 75 NBA players list. Steph has been a great shooter from the get-go, but overall, he wasn't as good of a player as other NBA greats in his first 3 or 4 years, and that's where Magic has a clear advantage. Magic is often considered the greatest passer in NBA history, while Curry is without any doubt the greatest shooter of all time. It's kind of like comparing apples and oranges in terms of offensive output, because both players are 2 of the best and most efficient players at their position, together with John Stockton and Steve Nash. Despite not being a great outside shooter, especially early on in his career, Magic has an excellent career true shooting percentage of 61%, just like Nash and Stockton, who were some of the greatest shooters ever. Johnson thrived thanks to his great transition offense, excellent post-up game, and efficient drives to the basket. Curry's true shooting is near 63%, and he's at...
And I gotta say, do y'all think that Curry is the best shooter ever? If you think about all the greats that has been to the league, y'all think Curry's the best shooter ever? Because when you think of point guard, what goes along with the point guard? Like, how are you assessing, or how are you saying who's your GOAT point guard? Like, what are you looking at, including GOAT? Like, are you looking at rings? Are you looking at stats, as in like assists per game? Are you looking at just shots, the percentage of from the shooting field? Like, what are y'all really looking at? Are we looking at turnovers? Are we looking at defense? Are we looking at steals? Like, what are we looking at? Because if you think about it, he said John Stockton, Steve Nash. Okay, we also have, other amazing point guards like Jason Kidd, Isaiah Thomas. You got Bob Cousy, Cousy, Gary Payton, Tony Parker. You got a lot of solid point guards. But Allen Iverson. It can go on and on and on, right? Because different people, Jason Williams, there's Chris Paul. Like, it depends what you look at. If we're talking about assists, you're probably not going to go with Curry, right? So I would like to know which y'all's level that you're looking at when you say this point guard is my GOAT.
Averaging 24.3 points per game in his career, which is nearly 5 points more than Magic's 19.5. However, Johnson averaged nearly 5 more assists than Curry, which would mean that he generated more points per game than Steph while being only slightly less efficient. But here, we have to take into account the difference in eras and the style of basketball that was played.
Exactly.
In the early 80s, Magic's Lakers averaged only 20 made threes in a season, while the modern-day Warriors often make 20 threes in one game.
That's crazy.
So, Steph generates more points off assists because he assisted on more three-pointers. Also, just the threat of Curry's deep bombs spaces the floor and opens up driving lanes, especially because you have to pick him up as soon as he steps into half court. Curry cannot be left open. His gravitational pull drop...
I ain't gonna hold you. His dribbling skills, very, 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 very good. Him and Kyrie, their dribbles, they know how to keep that dribble, no matter how many people is on them, for sure.
The defense, and it's the driving force behind the Warriors' motion offense. So just looking at stats doesn't account for Steph's hockey assists, or all the baskets he sets up by demanding defensive attention everywhere he goes. Curry's off-ball movement is one of the best in NBA history, and he became proficient in creating screen assists, especially since he bulked up in the last few seasons.
He did pick up some weight, that's good.
Another good argument for Steph is that Magic played nearly 3 more minutes per game than him, which inflates his numbers. Also in the playoffs, Johnson's scoring average remained at 19.5 in 39 minutes per game, while Steph's increased from 24.3 to 26.6 in the playoffs in 37 minutes per game. Steph also averages 27.5 points in his 6 trips to the NBA Finals, which ranks in the top 10 of all time, ahead of guys like Kobe, Kareem, and Larry Bird. If we compare their numbers per 100 possessions, it's clear that Steph generates more points than Magic. So, because he's extremely efficient with or without the ball, and because he creates so much space just by being Steph Curry, the greatest shooter ever, we have to give Curry the slight advantage in offensive output. And on the
and I'm not gonna hold you. Curry makes it look so easy. And what he deals with day in and day out on how people guard him, like already having bad ankles and stuff like that, he handles it very well. He deals with a lot. And for him to still make the game look easy, I mean, what negativity can you say about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just hard work. That's when you see that hard work is paying off. You know, I think Curry gets a lot of slack sometimes, but let's go.
Defensive end, Magic Johnson was never a great defensive player. He didn't make a single all-defensive team in his career, unlike the other top 10 all-time players. Even though he was fast running in a straight line, Johnson was extremely slow laterally because he was 6'9" and had a high center of gravity. In the 80s, his lack of athleticism and lateral quickness was somewhat masked because the game was played inside the three-point line, and it was easier to get steals in tighter spaces. Due to his length and basketball IQ that helped him predict what the offense was going to do, Magic even led the league in steals. But don't let the numbers fool you. Allen Iverson also led the NBA in steals because he gambled and jumped into passing lanes. But
how he lead the league in steals but never made the defensive team, the all-star defensive team? That make sense. Like, what?
He was by all accounts a terrible defensive player. If Magic played in today's pace and space era, he'd probably get exploited and targeted on every possession, and it wouldn't be pretty. The same could be said for Steph Curry, whose small frame always made him a mark for opposing offenses. Curry was never a great defensive player in the past, but that has now changed. Steph has been bulking up, adding 15 pounds of muscle from his first championship year until now. He's no longer getting killed on screens, and does not get bullied on switches by bigger guards and wings. In the 2022 NBA Finals, Boston tried to wear down Curry by constantly attacking him. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown targeted him in isolation, while Horford and Smart tried to beat him up in the post. Bulked up Curry just shrugged it off, and the Celtics scored a measly 0.79 points per chance on possessions when they attacked Curry in isolation. Steph's improved strength, mobility, lateral quickness, and willingness to hustle made him into a plus defender, which is exceptional for a player past the age of 30. While he certainly isn't going to get selected for the NBA All-Defensive Team, Steph has become one of...
Nah, Mike. Why they show that? Because Marcus Smart just bullied the mess up out of him down there. That's funny. It's not funny, but it's funny.
The better defensive guards in the NBA, and he now has a clear advantage over Magic in this department. However, it's always difficult making player comparisons from different eras. Contrasting rules, non-identical competition, and technology gaps are all factors that are nearly impossible to compare.
Exactly. That's why sometimes I get like frustrated when people be like, "Oh, who's your GOAT between this person, that person?" Like when people do MJ and LeBron or MJ and Kobe, I feel like it's just two different eras. Or when they say Bird and Kobe or Bird and LeBron, like it's just two different eras. Like I feel like you can't compare that because it's just two different eras. There's so much change between those eras to where it too much is in the way to compare it. You know what I'm saying? Like to really say who that person is. And plus, to me, Curry versus Magic, Curry is still writing his story. Curry's story is not over with, so it would be hard to compare him to Magic in the first place, regardless of the eras. Magic's story is over with, cool, basketball wise, but Curry's story isn't. So I feel like Curry, you never know how much more Curry has left in the tank to do.
But athletes from the modern era are generally faster, stronger, and more athletic than the athletes from the 70s or 80s.
True.
Bill Russell might be the winningest player of all time, but his 210-pound Chuck Taylor-wearing skinny body would be barbecue chicken if he played against prime Shaq. If a 2013 LeBron got into a DeLorean and traveled back in time to play basketball in 1963, he'd probably average 75 points per game. Aside from physical dominance and modern technology, players today are just much more skilled. They handle and shoot the ball better, and are tactically more advanced. Most players spend their summers in the gyms, with shooting coaches, nutritionists, and personal trainers.
Exactly. They didn't have, of course they had it, for example, when players were injured back in the day, did y'all see the type of braces that they had on their injured body part? Everything was just different. I seen I think it was Bill Walton, yeah. I think that was his name. And he had some knee braces on, but they was the worst knee brace I have ever seen in my life. And he was supposed to be having a quote unquote ankle brace on, but it was some made up kind where they put something together to try to support his ankle. They didn't have the support back then like people do now. The different type of talents as in athletic trainers, doctors, the right tools to help your body heal.
So if you want to know who would be a better player, prime Steph Curry from 2022 or prime Magic from the late 80s, the answer is pretty straightforward. Steph is a far superior shooter who doesn't even need to have the ball to be effective, and he became a much better defender. If a 2022 Steph time traveled to 1980, he'd easily average 40 points per game. If you don't believe us, go watch Magic Johnson's Game 6 highlights against the Sixers in the 1980 finals. The Sixers were so slow in transition, and Magic outran them for nearly half of his 42 points, and they left him open on many jump shots, which were all two-pointers. If Steph Curry played in that game, with his ability to nail threes from 30 feet, it would be like hitting practice shots, because nobody would even guard him that far out. Magic's biggest advantage was his pace, ball handling, basketball IQ, and size in the post against smaller guards. A 6'9" point guard was a phenomenon in the 80s, but today's NBA is full of big guards that can handle the ball. If Magic played in today's fast-paced NBA, he wouldn't have a physical advantage, and he would always be guarded by tall, athletic demons such as LeBron, Kawhi, or Giannis.
Facts.
Because he didn't have a great jump shot, defenders would treat him like Ben Simmons or Draymond, backing off him and forcing him to take tough and inefficient shots. Defenses in the 80s weren't as good as some old heads like to brag. They were only allowed to foul harder. Even with the hand-checking rules in the 80s and the 90s, Steph Curry would dominate with his shooting and his superior ball handling, especially the 2022 buff version of Steph that couldn't get physically bullied. And because he is extremely well-conditioned, Steph would run circles around everybody, and players in the 80s would get dizzy trying to find him on the floor. So, in a Space Jam scenario, where we'd have to pick one point guard to save the Earth from monsters in a basketball game, we'd take 2022 Steph over 1987 Magic, any day of the week, and twice on a Sunday. However, that still doesn't mean Steph is the greatest point guard of all time. In terms of basketball legacy and the greatest point guard of all time debate, it's hard to go against Magic Johnson. Magic instantly transformed the Lakers into a winning team, and they made 9 finals in his 12 seasons, winning 5 championships. Magic won the league MVP
9 finals in 12 seasons, 25 championships.
times, most ever for a point guard. He made 10 All-NBA teams
10
and 12
All-Star.
All-Star teams, and is
All-Star
generally
teams,
more
10
successful than
All-NBA
Steph,
teams.
despite retiring at the age of 31 due to HIV infection. Johnson won 73% of his games, which is the most in NBA history, and you really can't say anything against winning. Magic also had to get a lot of credit for bringing popularity back to the NBA when the league desperately needed it. And it's fair to say that Magic helped save the NBA from bankruptcy, alongside Larry Bird. We are not doubting his greatness as a player, and if 1987 Magic could time travel to the future and train like modern athletes, his basketball IQ, leadership, and winning mentality would come through. Due to better competition, more talent, and more teams in the league, Magic would probably not win as many championships, but he'd still be a dominant player, and we bet he'd play a lot like Luka Doncic. Steph still has a lot of basketball left to play, and he might collect more hardware to catch up with Magic in rings, All-Star, and All-NBA selections. But even if he retired now, his legacy is already set with phenomenal shooting that changed the game forever. 3 is more than 2, and Steph made the whole basketball world realize it with his golden touch from deep. Steph is also the easiest and most humble superstar to build your team around, and that's why Steve Kerr calls him the short Tim Duncan. Just like Timmy, Steph is one of the best teammates ever who always makes players around him better, leading by example. One could argue that his shooting records, efficiency, and impact on the game make him the GOAT point guard, but Magic has simply won more with less time in the league. So, we believe Magic is still the greatest point guard ever, even though Steph is a better overall player.
Alright, y'all gotta let me know what y'all think down below. Who's the GOAT point guard in your decision? Like, who's the best point guard? Ain't nobody touching that person ever. Let me know down below. Please let me know. And if you had to pick between Curry and Magic, who would you pick? Like, I feel like that's not a good matchup to pick from because, like I said, Curry's still playing. His story's not over, and it's just two different time frames. But you can't knock what Curry has done to the game and for the game. And you can't knock what Magic has done to the game and for the game. You know what I'm saying? So, salute to both of them. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know any other videos you like to see me do. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and push that notification bell so you know when I post. That being said, see you guys next video.